Well, I suppose I should say good morning or hello, but how about this? Hi, neighbors. Oh, I had to drive all the way across town to get here today from Lillian, Alabama. But when you move into your new church, you will be over on our side of town, and we will be neighbors. All you'll have to do is go down Pine Forest to Blue Angel, and Blue Angel to 98, drive across the bay, and there you are in Lillian, Alabama. I'll be the first to admit Lillian isn't very much. Now, we have a traffic light. We have a gas station. We have a restaurant, but it's closed on Sundays. But to get there, you have to take the bridge across Perdido Bay, and that makes the whole trip worthwhile. As you come across the bridge, scan the horizon from the forest in the north to the condos on the beach to the south. And imagine that you are on the Sea of Galilee with Jesus, because from north to south, Perdido Bay is the same size as the Sea of Galilee. Of course, if you were with Jesus, you wouldn't be driving on a bridge. You would be in a boat. Not a very big boat. A boat that you and your friends would be rowing. Row your boat. And if you were out in the middle of Perdido Bay in a small boat on a windy day, you would know what it was like to be out in the Sea of Galilee with Jesus. There's one thing that is the same on every lake or sea or bay. It's no fun to be out there when the wind is against you and waves are breaking over the bow, and you have to row your boat against the wind. It's so frustrating. Every time you try to rest for a moment, the wind pushes the bow around, and then you have to work all the harder just to get back on course. Even if you've never had to row your own boat, you know what it's like to live against the wind. Problems, health problems, family problems, problems at work or at school, problems at church. And it seems like the wind is always against you. And there you are, rowing against the wind. The disciples were rowing their boat in the middle of the lake, in the middle of the night, and they were tired. It had been a long day. They had left home early in the morning and had taken Jesus across the lake by boat, but the crowds could see them from shore, and the crowds could follow them all the way around the lake to the other side. By this time, Jesus was a hero in Galilee. He was a celebrity. People wanted to see him, to hear him preach. And that evening, they were all still there. So Jesus said, "Sit down and eat." Jesus fed them. 5,000 of them, the feeding of the 5,000 with 5 little loaves and 2 little fish. But Jesus wanted to be alone, to pray. So he sent the disciples home by boat. Jesus went up to the top of the mountain to pray. And then that long day became a long, long night. Jesus could see the boat from his mountaintop retreat. He could see them struggling against the wind and the waves. And Jesus decided to go out to them. And here this story ceases to be a story about boats and weather, and it becomes a story about faith. It was dark, and in the dark they did not recognize Jesus. It's a ghost! Here we can see where this familiar Bible story becomes a story about our lives. Not just because we're close to the bay, but because of fear and faith. Jesus saw the trouble the disciples were having, and he decided to go out to them. So often, we're so concerned about our problems. Our biggest problem becomes trying to find God in all of this. And where we forget, it's God who comes to us. Jesus comes in our times of trouble, when we need him. The problem is, so often, we don't recognize his help. We remain afraid, and we remain in doubt. So here again, the words of Jesus, don't be afraid. Take courage. I am right here. Think of all those Bible verses you learned as a child. Lo, I am with you always, even to the end of time. Where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am in the midst of them. I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep. And yet, so often, we're not so sure. So often, the nagging questions keep propping up. Is this God's will? Where is God in all of this? Why is the wind always against me? Are we like Peter, sinking in the waves? Jesus says, take courage. Don't be afraid. And here we come to one of those little translation issues, taking a verse from the Greek that it was written in into the English that we can understand. Peter says, if it's you, Lord, tell me to come out there. It would be much better if our Bibles would say, since it's you, Lord. Because Peter recognized Jesus. Peter was convinced it was Jesus, or he never would have got out of the boat. Okay. And Jesus says, okay, it's me. Come on. That was living faith. May God grant that we can be sure that God is there when we are afraid. May God grant that we will recognize the power of God's will. Jesus says, come on. Okay? Let's go. But the wind is against us. Portuguese fishermen have that saying, Lord, your sea is so great and my boat is so small. Peter could have said, Lord, your sea is so great and my faith is so small. Peter found it so hard. It isn't that he doubted Jesus. He got out of the boat and he walked on the water. And here is Jesus holding out his hand. But then Peter looked down and he saw the waves. He listened and he heard the wind. He became afraid and he started to sink. Here we can learn an important lesson from Peter. As long as he kept his eyes on Jesus, he was okay. It was only when he looked away, it was only when he let the sound of the wind drown out the voice of Jesus, only then did he start to sink. Jesus comes to us, but it's only when we keep our eyes on the cross that we can see the hand of God in our lives, and Jesus holds out his hand to us. Jesus holds out his hand to Peter. Peter did get out of the boat. He wanted to walk with Jesus. But there was the wind, and there were the waves, the perils and the dangers, the fears and the doubts. And Jesus says, you have faith. Use it. Don't let your faith be so small. Why let cares or fears or problems cause you to doubt? Leave it up to me. And through it all, it is Jesus reaching out to Peter. And it is Jesus who grabs a hold of Peter and lifts him up above the waves, reaching out and holding on, is the title that I like to give to this story of faith. So often we think our faith depends on us reaching up to God as we struggle to hold on to God's promises. Our faith is built on this. Jesus reaches out to us, and Jesus holds on. Don't be afraid. Take courage. I am right here. Amen.